How many have a chef? Are you kidding? These niggas talk my name, they with it. I'm back to 45 levels on, man, I'll Ross Clark wicked.
Before Horrid1 and SavO would team up with the likes of Digga D and become two of the newest stars of the UK drill scene. Before Horrid1 and SavO would both find themselves incarcerated behind bars and be prevented from creating music that glorifies violence. Before Horrid1 and SavO would have a combined amount of about 270,000 followers across both their Instagram profiles, that is at the time of this recording. Whenever UK drill rappers Horrid1 and SavO team up for a new track, well, you can bet they're gonna deliver some hard-hitting and extremely gritty beats. Now, these two have dropped some buzzworthy singles like No Hook and Evil Intentions, but unlike a lot of other fake drill rappers trying to earn a name for themselves on the streets, well, these two have been through the wars and are only just coming to the other side of it. Now, they might be hesitant to speak on the details of their past, but trust me when I say they're doing that for their own protection. The one thing that Horrid1 and SavO want you to know is that they're the reason drill music is now being placed under the microscope by the Metropolitan Police in London. How come? Well, just a few short years ago, these two brothers, well, they were arrested in the same sting that would see their fellow artist Digga D get incarcerated as well. You want to find out how all that happened? Well, you're gonna have to sit tight for our latest episode of Before They're Famous. And before we start this video, we want to give a big shout out to Drill Season's Instagram page. I mean, they got you covered for everything dedicated to the UK drill scene. So be sure to go and give them a follow. All right, let's get into this video. Horrid1 and SavO are brothers who were born Micah and Jordan Bedau, respectively. Now, Micah is the oldest of the two when he was born on June 5th, 1999, while his brother Jordan would be born a little less than 2 years later on February 13, 2001. Now, these two were lucky enough to have a good relationship with their parents growing up, and both of them have expressed that there was only one person in their lives that they've ever truly looked up to. That is their father. Over the years, however, they would both come to rely on one another more than perhaps any other single person. Now, growing up on the west end of London, well, these two, they would bounce around the streets, spending a great deal of time in their local haunts like Ladbroke Grove as well as Powis Square. Now, when they were youngsters, they'd constantly be roughhousing with one another, getting into all kind of good-natured play fights. Now, much to their teachers' disapproval, well, they'd bring this wild and crazy energy with them everywhere they went, including the schoolyard. In fact, after attending the same primary school together at Avondale Park, where Micah distinguished himself as the fastest kid in school, running in competitions to represent his borough. Well, the two brothers would then be separated from middle school on until the end of their education. Now, after this split, well, Micah attended Holland Park, but he was eventually kicked out in year 7. The following year, he was sent to Latimer Education Center, but he'd find himself dismissed from there as well. Then he'd finally finish his education at Insight in West Ealing, which is more or less an institution where the kids with the biggest behavioral problems, well, they get shipped off to. Meanwhile, Jordan, he attended Westminster Academy until year 8 before heading off to Chelsea Academy for the following year. Now, much like his brother, he'd find himself kicked out of that institution, and he'd then finish off his education at the Latimer Center. Now, throughout their school years, the brothers, they would spend just as much time on the West End London streets as they would in class. In fact, if we're being honest, well, they probably spent more time out there trying to pick up girls and chilling with friends than they really did in the school hallways. I'm just guessing. Eventually, these two fell in love with what is known at the time as Ladbroke Grove Crew 1011, which included a collection of kids with aspirations of achieving greatness in the world of hip-hop. Spearheaded by their lead MC Digga D, well, Jordan and Micah, they would join the crew, take on the monikers of Horrid1 and SavO to protect their identity. Then they started recording music with Digga D, and this included his tracks like No Hook. When that single dropped in early 2017, well, suddenly it seemed like the world was 1011's oyster. Now, the crew, they found representation in a dude named Bills, who then helped them land their debut on Mixtape Madness Freestyle Series Next Up. But just as they were on the precipice of becoming the next big thing in drill, well, they suddenly turned into a cautionary tale instead. In late 2017, Horrid1, SavO, and Digga D, as well as 2 other young men, well, they were arrested and convicted of conspiracy to commit violent disorder after they were stopped and searched by police on the city streets while carrying around machetes and baseball bats. Now, at the time, 1011's argument was that they had been on their way to shoot a new music video, but the police believed that their intentions were to start a violent brawl with their ops, 12 World. During the subsequent court case, well, video evidence would be submitted that 12 World had provoked the attack by releasing footage of themselves accosting Horrid1 and SavO's grandmother. Now, police say it's because of this footage that the brothers and their associates, while they were planning a revenge attack before being stopped in Notting Hill. Now, as the criminal case would unfold, the defendants would eventually change their story and plead guilty to conspiracy to commit violent disorder. And as a result, the Metropolitan Police of London, they pursued a criminal behavior order that would prevent the members of 1011 crew from making any music that included references to violence. Now, the brothers would eventually see release from prison before 2018 turned into 2019. But thanks to everything that had happened, they were ordered to no longer associate with their former crew members in 1011, which included Digga D. Now, as a means to circumvent this order, the former prominent members of 1011 would rebrand themselves, and this is under the affiliation of CGM or Cherish God More. Now, eventually, Digga D, he'd find himself back in prison by the end of 2018 for breaking the stringent conditions of the CBO. Now, thankfully, Horrid and SavO, they appear to have been able to avoid a similar fate, though there was a close call in 2019 where authorities, they tried to pull them in after the release of their music video, Violent Siblings.
But because of the video and the fact these brother in Queen Vic, this has to get a 10 out of 10, man.
Now, I gotta admit, it takes a lot of balls to call your single Violent Siblings when you've explicitly been told by the police that your music can't contain any references to inciting violence. But as best as I can tell, the brothers won their argument and they weren't punished any further. Punished? What the hell was that? Eventually, after 3 years, their CBO would expire in late 2021, and now these two brothers, they've been releasing track after track at an extremely prolific pace. This includes singles like Keep Talking, Wildest, Drowning, and Evil Brothers.
That's pretty hard, I'm not gonna lie. That was a vibe. I just felt the energy. I felt it. I'm in a better mood now. Negativity puts me in a better mood.
Now, in case it isn't abundantly clear by that type of output, these two are finally working their way towards dropping their long-awaited studio album, Violent Siblings, which is set to see release this very week. As for where these two see their careers taking them in the future, they're only got one thing on their mind: becoming as rich as legitimately possible. And that's all thanks to their music. Will they accomplish their goals now that their artistic expression is no longer behind heavily regulated, police orders? I guess only time will tell. After all, this is before they're famous. Alright guys, my name is Michael McCrudden, and I hope you enjoyed this video. This is the 5th video I filmed today, so sorry if there were any mistakes. Horrid1 and Sav'O, you guys answered some of our questions, helping us make this video, so we appreciate the collaboration, and we look forward to seeing where your careers take you. Alright, I'll see you guys in another video.